From County College of Morris, this is CCM All Access.
Hello, and welcome to CCM All Access, the show that brings you news and information from the County College of Morris. Students at CCM, members of the community, people doing good things. I'm Daniil Barkov, and we are coming to you from the Media Center here at CCM campus. My guest today is Demaris Medina, who is an admissions counselor here at CCM. Thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what your job is here at CCM, like some of the things you do every day?
So really it depends on who walks through my door. The main thing that I do is meet with students, and I speak to them about how CCM can help them achieve their goals, whatever that might be. So it could be joining a certificate program that goes right to the workforce, or it could be transferring in, or it could be starting out with us in the first place.
Okay. So, just a little question for clarification because I don't really know for sure. So, do you handle mostly students who are trying to come to CCM or students who are trying to transfer from CCM to another school? Or do you do both?
So we handle a little bit of everything. We do have a separate transfer counselor that specifically, her specialty is helping students that are already here transfer out. But there are times when I meet students who haven't even started here who already have a plan to transfer out. So I help them set that up from day one.
Okay.
So there are some students that will be here for 1 year. Either they were deferred or they're taking a year to kind of better their academic achievements before they go on to another school. Or sometimes they stay they end up loving it here. Most students end up loving it here, and they'll stay for the full associates.
Yeah.
But each student is different. They have their own experiences, and I try to,
Some
adapt to that.
some of the things that I learned from the show is that there's a lot of resources here at CCM that students aren't really aware of,
Yeah.
and even the admissions counselors, I know we had one of the, I've talked to a couple of them, I don't think we've had them on the show before, but I've talked to them a little bit because I'm trying to go to Rutgers, and there's a lot of stuff that I know students, specifically like myself, put off a little bit, and think that you don't really need to get it done on time. But I'm sure you can attest that there's a huge amount of necessity on like time management and applying to schools if you want to transfer, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's why I try to speak to students from the first day they meet with me about their entire plan, because you want to make sure that, if you want to go next year, there are deadlines you have to meet as far as applications, and what exactly will you have accessible to you at those deadlines. Because if you're looking to apply and the deadline's in February, you won't have your spring grades. You won't
Yeah.
have that final semester. So you want to make sure that you really are set up before your final semester to transfer.
Okay. Now students, for example, who want to go to bigger schools and stuff like that. Are they able to through CCM? I know with your assistance applying there, it's definitely a lot easier. But are there any like challenges that you see students usually facing that are pretty common with applying to schools?
Usually it's a little bit of what you mentioned, getting different documents in order. If it's a bigger school, they're actually more likely to have had a conversation with their transfer counselor before and have some sort of knowledge of our processes and our courses. It's actually usually more of an issue sometimes with smaller schools because then you might need to prepare your like your syllabus or your course descriptions on your own. They might not already have access to
Okay.
that. So then you'll have to, either go online or ask your professor for a syllabus
Okay.
and send that over
Yeah.
to them so that they can accept your credits.
See, I did not know about that at all. So if I was applying, I probably wouldn't even send any of that stuff in. So thank you for letting me know. This is
No
definitely going to benefit
problem.
me. Are there any common mistakes that you see students usually making in either like the process of applying to schools or maybe in the process of being at CCM and like having an overarching goal that they want to achieve but not really focusing on it?
I guess as far as selecting a school, my best advice to students is to usually, I know it's not always feasible, but to try to visit schools and
Yeah.
get a feeling. Sometimes students will just, pick a school based on reputation or a major or a friend went there,
Yeah.
all kinds of factors. And every factor is important, but there are students that actually come back to us after their first semester.
Hmm.
And that's actually very common. And part of the reason for that will be that they didn't feel comfortable at their school.
Yeah.
And so if you don't visit, you don't get to experience that ahead of time to prevent yourself from having to then transfer again.
Yeah. I know I went to somewhat of a party school my first semester, and mainly basically on reputation. And then the first semester of getting there, I realized that this isn't really what I wanted to do. And I feel like I didn't feel like I was in my own skin there, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then coming to CCM, I've been here for like 2 years now, and I love it here. It's awesome. It's great. There's, like I said, there's so many resources that students aren't aware of, which is why I think the show is great, because we get to, show them what we can do. Um, so, do you mind telling me how many counselors are there altogether for students to see?
So it depends on the type of counselor. We really break down into a lot of kind of concentrations so we
Okay.
can help students as best as we can. I try my best to not have to have students go and meet with another counselor. They don't have like to answer all the questions myself, but there are times when something is just very specific.
Yeah.
So there are 4 admissions counselors,
Okay.
and there's 1 transfer counselor, and then there's, I believe, 3, it might be 4 financial aid counselors.
Okay.
And then you guys also have your advisors.
Hmm.
So there's really, and then there's also career counselors.
Yeah.
And not sure how many of those we have. So there's really a whole team of people to help
Yeah.
you with all different areas.
Hmm.
And what I try to do when I first meet a student, since I'm usually the first person they meet, is try to answer all of the initial questions. And then sometimes if things start to get really specific, like I'll let you know that you can do an internship while you're with us, and that you can speak to career services, and that you can work while you're going to school. You could do a work study, but then if you want to know something more specific, like how many there are or something like that, I wouldn't know that. I would then
Okay.
have to have you speak to the career counselors.
Gotcha. So you guys are a little bit like intertwined with helping each other out, all the departments. Okay. Now, some of the maybe just for people to be aware of, applying to schools. How is it usually in advance do you have to do it? I know you said making a plan. Some students need to improve their GPA over some time,
Yeah.
but do you have any tips on how to do that for students, or some common mistakes they can avoid?
So usually when applying to a school, the first thing you want to check is the deadline and if they're rolling admission. If they're rolling admission, you have a little bit more time. So CCM is rolling admissions. So that means rolling admissions means you take students year round
Okay.
for the closest semester. So no matter when you apply, there's a semester starting soon for you to join us. But there are schools that have much stricter deadlines. They might only take students in the fall, or it might only be a set date in the fall and the spring,
Okay.
and you might not be able to just start in the summer or a different term. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what that school's policies are. And we are more than happy to help you discuss that and help you figure that out. I always encourage students not to be afraid to talk to us about other schools, because we want all of our students to transfer, and a majority of our students do. And the truth of it is that we're here to help you with the entire process, even after CCM.
I know one of my biggest fears, because I've talked to counselors a couple times about like what plans I want to do just to figure it out. I don't think I've ever talked to you though about it, which it would have been a lot easier for us to communicate more. But the one of the biggest issues that I had was kind of going to the counselor and being like, hey, I want to go to a different school, but then I realized that they're here to help you. They want you to go on further. CCM, I feel. To me, I see CCM as like a huge groundwork for students. A lot of we're just kind of thrown into this world like thinking that we need to know what career we're going to have in the future, and I think CCM is something that's really good for helping you understand that and get a feel for it. Because like I said, there's so many resources here. There's so many people here who want to help you and motivate you to move forward.
Exactly.
So can you tell us maybe how long you've been doing this here at CCM?
So at CCM, I've been here for 4 years. I just made my 4th year, and then I did work at 2 previous institutions.
Okay. Were you also like a counselor there for applications? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I
Okay.
was an admissions
Admissions
counselor
counselor. Sorry.
and an EOF counselor before as well.
EOF. What is an EOF counselor? If you don't mind me asking.
So EOF is the Educational Opportunity Fund, and it provides extra support for financially disadvantaged students. So what happens is a lot of times, and first generation students, so what happens is there's no one, if your parents have gone to school, you can kind of come home and say, you know, this is my syllabus, or this is what's going on. But if your parents didn't go to school, they don't know what a syllabus is, or they might not know other things about the college experience. So it's just kind of an extra place that you can go to and talk about the things that, you know, might make you, like you said, nervous to ask someone else, because you might assume that you're supposed to know that or something.
Yeah. So me coming from Ukraine, my mom, their whole college system there's a little different, you know. Plus, you know, she went a little while before I was born. So kind of coming here, I've kind of had to be on my own, figuring out a lot of this stuff. So like I said, the counselors here have really helped me with kind of understanding. I know a huge problem for me was the deadlines, because I would never check them. 'Cause I'm like, I have plenty of time. But then it would just sneak up on you, and then I would have to gather up everything all together. That's basically how I applied to colleges my first time. But what so the CCM, the admissions office, where is that specifically on the campus?
So if you park in parking lot 6 and you walk into the Student Community Center, we're the very first office.
Okay. Yeah, because I know
Can't miss us.
they moved a lot of offices around. There's
They
been like renovations and stuff like that. So how many students usually come to you guys during the day? Is it by appointment, or is it just
So
walk-ins?
we do take appointments. It keeps you from waiting if you make an appointment. But we do also take walk-ins. We never turn away a student. Um, in a day, it really does matter. Of course, like you said, deadlines.
Yeah.
So the closer we are to a deadline, we could see, you know, maybe 100 students
Gets a little
in a
hectic,
day.
right?
But you know, it's now May, so we're ending this semester a little far from the fall. So right now, maybe 30 students a day, 20
Okay.
students. So it's a lower number depending on how far the deadline is.
Okay. So, and another question is, do students usually apply to schools like within the spring semester or fall semester? Because I feel like a lot of times some schools will accept students specifically in the fall semester, like we were talking a little bit before, and you said. So, is there any reason for that? Just because I don't have an understanding of this, so if you can elaborate a little bit on it, yeah.
Yeah, so it depends on each school, but part of the reason why some of the four-year institutions will only have set deadlines will be because they only have a set number of seats, and what they want is to be able to see all the applicants and then decide which ones are the best, rather than saying, oh, we accept you, but then there might be a better applicant that applies 2 weeks later,
Yeah.
and then now there's no room for them because you applied first.
Okay.
Which is why there are such things as like early decision deadlines. And those can either have a commitment or not. So there are some schools that will have an even earlier deadline for students that are saying, if I get accepted, I'm going here. And it's kind of like a contract.
Gotcha.
So if you use one of those deadlines, you might have a better chance of getting in because it's not the full applicant pool. But if you do get in, then you're committing to that school. There are non-committed deadlines as well, where you could have an early decision and not be contractually obligated to go to that school.
Okay. So, and what would happen if you didn't go to that school?
Just,
I mean, I don't know. I was just a little curious, but
I'm not completely sure. It is a contract. You do sign
Yeah.
it. So I don't know what their we are not an early deadline
Yeah.
school, and I haven't worked for one, so I don't know what their process
I mean,
is.
I'm sure students who put that in, they're really sold in that school, so they want to increase their chances. I know I actually applied early admissions to one school, and I did not get in, so, but thank God it was in Ohio. So, also with rolling admissions, so I feel like most schools aren't rolling admissions, right? CCM is one of the few exceptions that is rolling admissions, correct?
It really depends on the types of schools. Smaller schools and sometimes private schools can be more likely, at least in New Jersey, to have rolling admissions.
Okay.
But the larger schools are usually not, and schools out of state usually are not.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of the type of school you're looking at and the location, but there aren't as many. No, you're more likely to be looking at a set deadline.
Okay. And so students with making appointments, they could just walk in, sign up, and there's not like a long wait period or anything like that,
No,
right? No, okay. And you said there's 4 counselors altogether for the admissions, then I believe 4 for financial aid too, correct?
I think.
You think? Okay. So then, when you guys communicate with the students, do you like you don't handle the financial aid? It would be they would get sent to the financial aid to help them out with what else they would need to apply there, like those documents as well, right?
I just give them a brief introduction. If
Mm,
students are not familiar with the FAFSA, I'll just let them
yeah.
know that they should fill that out,
Mm,
or HISA. And then if there are any questions I can answer, I will. But if there's actual financial aid
mm,
documents, we don't take them in our office.
okay.
For privacy reasons,
Yeah.
they go directly to financial aid.
Okay, so aside from the financial aid situations, but gathering up the documents, you help the students out with them, and you would be able to check them and see what they can improve on, what they can fix, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Not all County College of Morris students look like me.
Some look like me.
Or me.
Or me.
Or me.
We all come to CCM at different stages of life
and for different reasons.
I plan to transfer to a university.
I'm training for a new career as a nurse. But we all know one thing.
CCM is where we want to be.
So check out the website.
Check out the website.
Check out the website.
And let CCM connect learning and your life.
All right. We're gonna pretend like I'm talking right now, okay? And we're back on CCM All Access. I'm Daniil Barkov, and we are here with Demaris Medina, admissions counselor. Can you please tell us? I know. So you've been in the field for several years now doing this. Can you please tell us about how the demographic of students who are applying has changed in the past couple of years?
Yeah, so we have seen more adult students for a couple of reasons. So the number of high school students graduating is declining. And so a lot of schools have adapted a lot of their strategies to be more feasible to either adult students or young adults or what are considered non-traditionals. And so what that would mean is you'll see more online classes, you see more evening classes, and even for someone like me, so I took classes at CCM to prepare for my master's. I had to take prerequisite classes. And so I was considered a non-traditional student. You know, I already had my bachelor's, but it was in a different field. I was re-careering. And so that's another type of student that we see often in my office. You know, I want to move fields, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And so they can absolutely, you know, do that here and reach out to us. And I absolutely feel that the classes at CCM could not have prepared me better. And every student I speak to, every alum says the same thing. They go to another school and the preparation they had here was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I took classes here for a master's program. I didn't go to a bachelor's after I completed my courses here. I'm in a clinical psychology master's at Montclair. And the classes here, some of them were more detailed and more they increase my understanding more than even some of the classes I'm in right now.
So I know, like personally, I've seen a lot of, like you said, the high school graduation is a little bit declining. Do you think that could be mainly because there's I know internet's definitely a huge part, and a lot of people are able to start different careers at an earlier age and stuff like that. Do you think that could possibly be a reason why it's happening?
Well, I'm not sure that the rates are declining as far as the number of students versus the number that graduate. The number of students in high school is declining.
Really?
So there aren't as many, people aren't having as many children, and then there aren't as many students as there once were.
Gotcha.
I'm not aware if the actual rates in the schools have declined, but if they have, I would imagine that it could be the internet, not just as a distraction, but also as an actual workforce. You know, people can just create their own website and create their own small business or, you know, different career paths like that, and they might not necessarily want to go to school right away. But we do see a lot of students that will come back later on. They'll say, you know, I have my own business business, or I've done, I went to hairdressing school, or I did these other trades, and now I want to manage them better. So I want, a small business management certificate, or now I want to just have a specific skill that will help a business that you already have, or a career path that you already have, and you can do that as well.
So, and I know me, myself personally, I've noticed there has been an increase in adult students at CCM, not even at CCM, just like at other schools. And do you see a lot of those adult students transferring then to four-year school, or like bigger schools after? Because I feel like they usually come to get like a bachelor's or something like that. But I haven't really talked to anyone about what their plans are after CCM.
Yeah, so it does depend on each student. Some students we do have quite a number of students that will take prerequisites for another degree. So there might be students that are taking classes for a master's. But we do also have adult students who, they had their kids, they wanted them to go through school first, and now they feel like, it's their turn.
Yeah.
And so they could be going on for either just to go right into the workforce, so a trade skill, or they could be continuing on to a bachelor's. Either or, they would start out here, and what I see with a lot of students, including myself, when I was getting my bachelor's, is your plans change as you go.
Yeah.
So you might have started here thinking, I'll be here for one semester, or I'll be here just to gain this skill, and then, I'll take it back with me and I'll improve myself. But then once you do that, it ignites this fire in you of learning and wanting to continue on, especially since the professors here are so supportive. The staff here guides you every step of the way, and they're always encouraging you to continue on for something more.
Yeah.
And so they give you that feeling. My professors here helped me pick my concentration. So I knew I wanted to go into psychology. I had been working as a counselor for a little while, and I didn't know what kind. Sometimes we don't think about that. There's so many fields within your field. And so they helped me with that. So it could be so many questions along the way, and there's so many different pathways to a career. That you can take, and so there's really not one answer, other than students come back for all kinds of reasons, and they continue, and their plans change as they go, and they could really do anything once they're here. And that's what I try to tell my students when they're in my office, is that you can do anything. This is your first step, you're a little nervous, you don't know what it's going to be like. Once you get into that first class and you are comfortable, the possibilities are endless.
I've also feel like I've noticed with a lot of people, I don't know if it's specifically older students, but at least now for a number of years, college was the, end all be all. You have to go there to get a job. But I feel like now a lot of people are starting to focus once again on like trade jobs. So do you see a lot of that also? At least have you seen a change in that by any chance?
Well, yes, there's been a huge employment gap because everyone was pushing bachelor's and master's so much. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. I work in education. I love education, but there are jobs that don't require a full bachelor's. And you can either get the associates with us or get a certificate and be able to have these what are called trade gaps, these careers that don't require a bachelor's, but they really need a lot of people to. One of the biggest fields around here is manufacturing. You don't need a bachelor's, you just a certificate in CAD, or an associate's in one of our engineering degrees would be more than good enough to get you into one of those companies. And they're desperate. Well, I don't want to say desperate, but they're really looking for students. They reach out to us all of the time, and they'll reach out to our graduates before they even graduate to come and join their field, because there is that kind of employment gap of, everyone wants to continue on to a bachelor's, but we have jobs for you right here, right now.
And I feel like a lot of people don't notice that. And like I know the new building that CCM is building, which is like I believe an engineering type building.
It's the engineering sciences building.
So even CCM accommodates that type of education, which I think is incredibly impressive. Because specifically, I know a lot of schools definitely do that, but CCM is going creating a whole new building basically to accommodate students like that. Um, Another huge question that I've had is, can you please tell us a little bit about what the college selection process is for students? Because personally, I feel like a lot of people are a little bit confused on it, and it seems kind of hectic. Because I know when there's a bunch of websites, there's a bunch of documents you have to send, all this stuff. So can you maybe walk us through how it works?
Of course. So the basics are the same as CCM. So our basic process is an application. Some schools will be part of the Common App. We're not.
Yeah.
So if a school is not part of the Common App, you go to their website and you complete their application. And then you have to submit proof of secondary school completion. The reason I say that specific way is because it can be a high school transcript, but I've also seen a lot of GED students.
Okay.
And so it's really either or, and I don't want a student to feel like, oh, they
Yeah.
only want a high school transcript. No, you can also provide a GED, and that is true for the four-year schools as well. And then once you submit your proof of secondary school completion, then there's usually some sort of entrance exam or documents you can provide.
Okay.
So we do have our own placement test. Every school I know of requires some sort of either placement test or scores. So some schools now have become SAT, ACT optional, but if you don't provide the scores, then you're probably taking an entrance test with them once you're through the application part. With us, it's either or. You can submit the scores, the SAT, ACT scores, or PARC scores, or you can take the test. And once you have that, or if you're transferring from here to a four-year school, you can submit your college transcript, and that can override any sort of SAT, ACT, or entrance test. So that way you can avoid the entrance placement test, and you've gotten the extra academic achievements from here. So that could be a huge determining factor for schools. If you've attended another school before, they look at that usually with a bigger weight than any SAT or high school transcript, because you are showing them how you function at a college already. You're showing them you can handle, it's different than high school. You pick your own classes, you have your own time management.
It's more freedom and
Exactly.
responsibility.
Exactly. And so that's why they value the college transcripts usually more, because then you're showing them what you've achieved in a college world already. And so if you can show them that you've done well at a college already, then they're more likely to accept you. So it is possible that students did not get into a set school and they came here and then transferred and got into that same school. Because they were able to show that they could handle the college world.
Gotcha.
So that's usually weighed more heavily. They do look at your secondary school transcripts, your high school, how you performed on there. And then some schools, depending on how rigorous they are, will look at the rigor of that. So like, did you take any AP classes? Did you take any honors classes? That kind of thing. And then along with that, they'll look at the SAT and ACTs. Schools are trying to move away from that a little bit. There's been, a lot of conversations about some students just don't test as well, or, test anxiety.
I feel like a lot of the time it benefits students who are good test takers, as opposed to some students who are good students and, are really hungry to learn, but just can't sit in front of a test, filling out bubbles for 2 hours,
Exactly.
Another big question that I had with having to do specifically with like applying to schools is a lot of the time when you're filling out like the documents and stuff like that, like with SAT specifically, and that's not SAT specifically, but with colleges, I know at least I was told a little bit that students who started maybe had some issues and weren't the best students at the start, but then made drastic improvements throughout their career. Is that more beneficial towards colleges? They don't see that as bad, do they?
No, they don't. Usually that's either seen as equal as someone who didn't have that issue, or sometimes even better, because you're showing that you can overcome something. You're showing that you have perseverance. And then the same can be said for the college process. So like I said, they really look for how you're adapting to college courses. So maybe your first semester you had a hard time and you took a really hard class, you didn't do as well in it, but there was some other things going on. So you take the class again and you do better. That is gold, because you didn't just, let's say you passed, if you got a D, you could have left it at a D, you could graduate with a D, but they'll appreciate the fact that you went and took the class again and improved yourself.
Okay. So, Can you actually tell us a little bit more about yourself, like maybe where you went to school and how you decided that you want this to be your career, that you want to help students move forward?
So I think that's a really funny question. I tell every student that I meet to try in some way or form to um, get some experiences in different fields, whether it's a work study, a job, externship, internship, it could be anything. The reason why I say that is because a lot of students are usually surprised that I was a biology major.
Okay.
And so I clearly am not working in
Yeah.
science. And so what ended up happening, and I've heard this from a couple other students in teaching, in business, in all fields, I graduated, or during my, well, in my case, I graduated, but it could be during your senior year or something like that. I got a job as a researcher. I did not like working as a researcher. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just got a degree in this field and I don't like what I'm doing. And I can't do this every day. I like talking to people. I like helping them. And as much as research helps people, you don't get that benefit of the interaction. You know, you're working with experiments in a lab, and there's not that human interaction that I really wanted. And so I reflected on that a little bit, and I said, well, when did I have a great experience with that? And when I was a student at St. Peter's, I worked for their orientation team as a work study. I worked in their admissions office, and that was my first kind of introduction to
Just dipping the
the
toes in a
higher
little,
ed world.
Okay.
And so I went back and applied, and then I was able to work there just for, you know, like a summer internship. And then from there, that was enough experience to get hired at my first counselor position, which was an EOF counselor.
Okay.
And that was really important to me because I was a first generation college. Well, I am a first generation college student. You don't stop being it. And English is not my first language. And so I really related to a lot of the issues that the students I was speaking to were facing. And I wanted to help them because I just feel like they have these extra little struggles that we don't think of every day. You know, like there's words that I still know I avoid saying or spelling because I just, even 15 years into this language, I just can't wrap my brain around the same thing.
Yep.
So it was really important for me to work in that area and kind of feel like I gave back to a program that helped me. And then from there, it was a private school, and I love private school. I went to private school. I went to St. Peter's, but it just felt like there was a lot of me saying to students, like, you know, they couldn't afford this and this and that, and like I couldn't help this as much as I wanted to. And so that's where CCM came into the picture, because here you can help every student. And the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, I didn't graduate from my own county school, but I did take classes there when I was in high school. Similar to the program we have here, we have the Challenger program for high school students to take classes.
Yes, we've had a couple come through.
So I did a similar thing at my community college, and so that it started my interest in higher education. And so it really all ties back to that original experience. Like I said, once you have that first class and you really feel like you can do it, whether that's when you're in high school or after you transferred back, or after you're an adult or changing careers. It doesn't matter at what point it happened, but you have that experience in that moment of, I can do this, and this is what I want to do. And now the more time that I spent with students in the admissions world, I'm getting my master's in psychology, in clinical psych. So it just, I like to tell students that career paths are never really straight. You know, there's all kinds of turns that you take along the way, but they each help build more abilities, more character. They educate you more. So I just like for students to keep their options open and just take advantage of every opportunity. My career ended up coming in from a work study opportunity. So it wasn't exactly what I had originally planned out, but I find most things in life aren't.
Yeah, it worked out for you in the end.
It did.
So before we end, can you just one more time tell us where students can find your offices and maybe what times you're there?
So we're open 8:30 to 4:30 Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and
Okay.
then 8:30 to 6:30 on Mondays and Thursdays. So we're open a little bit later, so anyone who's working can try to get to us. And we're the very first office when you go into the Student Community
Gotcha.
Center on the second floor. So when you
Okay.
come in from parking lot 6.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This has been another edition of CCM All Access. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.